AI language models are the things behind things like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and more. They're huge now, people use them in their daily lives all the time, and in this video I'm going to explore the evolution of these models from the inception, from the first language models out there to the newest language models such as GPT-4. So let's hop right in. Alright guys, let's start talking about some of the first attempts at language models. The first main attempts made at creating language models that could actually generate and understand human language was through rule-based systems, right? A key thing in these systems was trying to pass a Turing test, which was a test that was basically made at that time to basically gauge whether or not a model was kind of human-like and whether or not a model was actually good, right? And it was a big deal trying to pass this Turing test. And even now there are debates on whether or not we have passed the Turing test right now. Like, the Turing test is basically where the model is unrecognizable from a human and talks and chats in the exact same way a human does, right? So you could clearly see how there are debates about whether or not our language models right now do that or not. Alright guys, so to dive more deeper into rule-based systems, basically what rule-based systems are is that they use parsing and kind of just like these rule systems to basically tell and break apart text and kind of understand what's going on inside of them. Some popular models were Elisa and Shardlu. I have no idea how to pronounce that, guys. Shrdlu. These were popular models back in the day that used rule-based systems. The problem with rule-based systems is that since they're just based on kind of rules, it's very hard to kind of scale them up, and they're also hard to maintain over time as well. After this, guys, there was a surgence of basically statistical models that use statistics to go ahead and predict stuff and basically identify patterns in language. And then after that, in the early 2000s, there was another resurgence in AI and in NLP where they started developing neural networks. These neural networks were huge for NLP models, as many of them are very key for neural networks to understand language just like the human brain does in terms of weighing different options and coming to a final conclusion. Because of this, models such as LSTM, sec-to-sec, and early transformer models were eventually developed. All of these models were basically huge for the development of NLP. Early transformer models were released pretty recently by Google, and these are all very key. I mean, transformer models are now used in ChatGPT, and this is really what sparked our modern view of NLP. Main key shift from NLP, from going from those old models that we had before to the new models that we use today like GPT, is the transformer architecture that came out in 2017, right, from the paper Attention is All You Need. This is a really key architecture. It basically allows for the easier processing of sequences of data, basically like tokens and sequences, which was very key for models like BERT and GPT-2 to come out, which were basically huge models in the community at that time that utilized this transformer architecture to make some huge leaps in AI. GPT-1 was the first GPT model released by OpenAI. This model was basically using a decoder-only architecture and could basically do some basic things like answer questions, I think content simulation, just basic trivia questions, things like that. Then you go to GPT-2, which was also pretty interesting. It's pretty similar. It also used basically similar to a decoder-only architecture. The main difference that you get is with GPT-3 that can then output crazy stuff that GPT-2 and GPT-1 can't. It can do things like poetry, blogs, PR content, marketing, etc. It can actually be used a lot in the real world for real world applications, and it does use a decoder only architecture as well. And of course, these all are using attention and transformers from the Attention is All You Need paper released by Google in 2017. Guys, and now finally reaching to the state-of-the-art model we have now, GPT-4. GPT-4 is huge. It has a huge 128K context window, which basically means it can have a huge context. It doesn't really forget what you said in the conversation. It kind of can keep a bunch of text in its memory at one time. Has huge applications, especially with GPTs that I've made some videos about in industry and real world applications, bro. I use it like probably almost every day, I mean, it's a huge tool. It's actually very useful in daily life now. It's not just some AI enthusiast specialty thing, right? GPT-4 is absolutely gigantic. The text it generates is very high quality, very human-like. It can even be indistinguishable if it writes in the correct styles. I think another interesting discussion is basically the politics of this and like how woke models are going to be. GPT-4 is actually one of the less woke models, but things like Gemini and Claude are a little bit more, politically correct and things like that. So it's kind of interesting, the ethics of what we can allow these to generate and kind of when taking and training data, what biases do they have, right? And then even these huge companies like Microsoft, what biases might they put in the models as well, right? And what is needed for safety, right? Because you never know what these are being trained on, right? All very important things, and leave your opinion in the comments below. In general, these NLP AI models have really changed how we interact with technology, right? Mainly in the way that language barriers have largely gone away. I mean, in terms of translation and things like that, NLP models are huge, right? They just completely change how we interact with language and technology. And I think these NLP models in the future, in terms of bias, will be very interesting to see, because they basically just propagate whatever bias they're actually trained on, right? So it's interesting to see, depending on the data sets, right? Like the internet and just general data sets, what bias do these guys actually have? I would say, well, maybe I would especially kind of a liberal bias, a progressive bias, maybe not liberal, but definitely like progressive, maybe, because they're getting data from the internet and things like that. But it's hard to kind of know, right? And it's also hard to know what's being filtered out to really understand what bias the model has by itself. I think misinformation, people always look at it as the models are going to be propagating misinformation, but I think in reality, misinformation can actually be combated by these models. The models can kind of classify misinformation and show like, oh, okay, this thing has a high likelihood of misinformation, or this thing is just spreading something that's not factually correct, and then shut that down, which is also pretty interesting. But then again, it's like, what do you consider misinformation? Whatever, things like that get really interesting. I think job displacement is another thing that people really talk about quite a bit. And I think that, it's not going to really be an issue, right? I think that AI NLP models can't really do what humans can do. I think maybe there'll be a little bit of job displacement, but in reality, I mean, NLP models are nothing like human beings. I'm not concerned, okay, guys? Chill down. Alright, guys, so in this video, we have gone over everything from the history of GPT models to the current GPT model of GPT-4 and its societal impacts. I mean, I think honestly, bro, every single sector is gonna get disrupted. Almost every, not every single, but like many, like a wide variety of sectors are gonna get completely disrupted. I would honestly say most sectors will get completely and totally disrupted by this. I think by the time I'm an old man, bro, by the time I'm like 70, 80 years old, I'm gonna probably like witness everything, Inshallah, if Allah lets me, live that long, inshallah. But I mean, yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I mean, leave a comment. What do you think about the future of AI? If you want to join my Discord, hop in. Link is right in the description for you guys. Please subscribe, please like, all of that stuff. Ramadan Kareem to you guys. See you in the next video. Bye bye.